It's been a little while, everyone, but welcome to episode 21 of Dark Aspects, a series where I talk about the adult content hidden within family-friendly video games. This multi-part remake of my earliest video on the channel will talk about everything scary, shocking, and suggestive in the English localization of EarthBound, looking at all the censorship and changes made to the game from its original Japanese release, known as Mother 2. With strict content policies and ratings board guidelines to follow, how far was Nintendo of America willing to go in preserving this game's mature themes, and creator Shigesato Itoi's original script? Let's talk about how even after a great deal of revisions, this game we got in the West is considered to be one of the darkest Nintendo's ever produced. A couple of ground rules, I guess, before we start. To make comparing the games less confusing, I won't be using the titles EarthBound and Mother 2 interchangeably. So when I say EarthBound, I'm referring specifically to the English release of the game. When I say Mother 2, then, I'm talking about the original Japanese version. Also, much like the name change from Giyg to Giygas between the first and second game, Pokey is how Porky's name was localized into English. They are absolutely the same character, but I will use Pokey when referring to EarthBound, and Porky in the context of its sequel. With all that out of the way, let's begin. Part 1. Violence and Villainy. The first topic of today is EarthBound's exploration of dysfunctional families. It's no secret that Pokey, the second hand to Giygas and the primary antagonist of the sequel, lived in an abusive household. In Mother 2, Pokey's father punishes him and his brother off-screen for coming home late, which plays a violent sound effect revealed after to have been spankings when Pokey complains about his butt hurting. In EarthBound, that sound was edited to seem less harsh. Instead of physical correction, it emulates yelling. This is affirmed when Pokey whines instead about his father telling him he can't have dessert for the rest of the decade. That's not the only time EarthBound censors abuse, though. Later on in the game, Tony warns Jeff that if he gets caught sneaking out of Winter's Snowwood boarding school, he'll be punished big time. This was changed from Mother 2's line, where he instead warns that if you get caught, you'll get a paddling. So after getting smacked or yelled at, depending on the version, Pokey's mother, Lardna, complains her husband is much too lenient with the children, wishing he'd punish the kids more. In Mother 2, Lardna continues to insult her son until the very end of the game, calling him a pig of a son when he goes missing. His father even verbally abuses him, spending his time drinking at the bar without his wife knowing, and instead of looking for his son. Their family fractures even further when Lardna starts seeing a new man. In Mother 2, his name can figuratively mean lover boy or stud, so in EarthBound he's known as Mr. Pretty Man. And according to the Japanese script, his parents are still married at this point. Lardna is cheating on her husband, and her husband is off getting wasted. It is worth mentioning that any instance of alcohol in Mother 2 was either removed, like these human enemies grumbling about today's youth instead of blathering drunkenly, or replaced with coffee and coffee-related beverages like espressos in an attempt to lessen EarthBound's age rating. But it's in name only, as anyone with a caffeine buzz is holding what still clearly looks like a mug of beer, complete with flushed faces and dialogue-interrupting hiccups. Compared to Pokey's home life, Ness's is much tamer, though it's far from ideal. His mom is great, but from what we're shown, she's raising Ness and his sister all on her own. While Ness's dad sends money his way, a lot of money, he's simply not there. It's an ongoing joke in the fandom that Ness's dad is a phone, because like Nintendo's father, the only way to communicate with him is by calling. Though in EarthBound Beginnings, he at least makes an appearance after the credits. As we'll see another example of in a bit and all throughout my Dark Aspects videos, neglectful or absent fathers is a common theme throughout the Mother series. Moving south of Winters but not shifting gears yet, we're introduced to Jeff's father, Dr. Andonuts. He's a very aloof parent, to say the least. He hasn't seen Jeff in about 10 years, and when they first meet here, he seems to have forgotten all about him. It's made very obvious that he puts his work as a scientist above his responsibilities as a father. And towards the end of the game, when Ness is asked to activate the phase distorter required to confront Giygas, the player can refuse, which will have Andonuts ask his son instead. When Jeff says no, his father will be disappointed that he's lost his nerve. In Mother 2 though, he'll outright call Jeff a wuss instead. Keep in mind, this is immediately following a major display of braveness, when the party has their brain programs surgically transferred to the shells of robots, because their bodies would have been destroyed in the process of time travel. I am getting ahead of myself though, so going back in time ourselves from this point, I'd like to speak about the early game again with the Onet police force. After Ness trespasses to confront the first Your Sanctuary boss, and requests access to the next town over, Captain Strong orders his team to face off against the boy. These cops aren't implied to have been brainwashed, they just want to fight a kid. They also love to complain and are useless in general. Ness is the only one to take care of the local gang problem while they simply block off roads. I'm not going to say too much more about this, but corrupt cops are unfortunately entirely relevant in our world today, as they clearly are in Eagle Land. While speaking about the abuse of power, the boss of Berglund Park, Everdred, informs Ness that Paula, the second party member and girl he's been looking for, has been kidnapped by crazed cultists as a planned sacrifice. But why does this crime lord care so much about one girl's safe return? In Mother 2, it's made much more obvious that he's actually tied to the crime, revealing that he lent out the cabin Paula's being held at to the kidnappers. When she is eventually saved by Ness, Everdred will be relieved, giving the two of them a $10,000 wad of cash. In EarthBound, it isn't clearly explained why he gives them 10 grand, but it makes much more sense in Mother 2, because the stack of bills is implied to have been the money he was paid for renting out the cabin in the first place. So this was likely done out of remorse. He gifted them the money to clear his conscience. As for the cultists themselves practicing happyism, their outfits were modified because the localizers were concerned they looked too similar to the Ku Klux Klan's robes and hoods. Further concerning as well were the H's featured on their foreheads that could be mistaken as K's due to the small sprite size. While on the topic, it was confirmed by head localizer Marcus Lindblom that Threek was changed to Threed because again there was fear that the name could be misconstrued as 3K, unintentionally alluding to the acronym KKK. If the attempt of sacrificing a little girl wasn't enough, let's continue this theme of violence with the game's combat. One of the funny things about EarthBound is that back in 1995 when it first released, reviewers were hounding the game for how utterly non-violent it was. But in battle, while these are static sprites and everything happening is explained through text, Ness is still made to bash animals and people, turned hostile by Giygas' influence with a baseball bat. Nothing is killed, mind you, they are either tamed or reverted back to normal, but imagining these fights playing out in real time is certainly no romp in a McDonald's playland. One part of the game that still relies on imagination but more directly depicts a brutal exchange is that of Prince Poo, the fourth and final party member's Mu training, inspired by the Chinese tale of a prodigal young man and the hermit. Meditating upon a high cliff and ignoring all worldly distractions will activate a sequence in which the spirit of Pooh's ancient lineage appears as an apparition. It'll ask to tear off the boy's limbs, starting with his arms and legs so they can be fed to the crows. The player must answer yes for each, taking away Pooh's total health with each body part that's removed. To make this scene even more immersive and disturbing, when the spirit rips off Pooh's ears, the audio cuts out completely. The music and selection sound effects gone. his eyes are taken next, which causes the screen to fade to black. The only thing that's left then is his mind, but even that's surrendered as a final test. While this training seems terrifying, it is all illusionary, and it is not senseless mind torture. Perhaps it's for absolute clarity, to prove his devotion, to focus on his goal with zero distractions. Maybe it's preparation, the need to persist through pain for his long journey to come. Whatever the case may be, it's a great introduction to his unbreakable character. My other favorite segment of the game, which, big surprise, also happens to be dark, comes from the sprawling city of Fourside. Along with the children, a certain recurring artifact arrives in this grandiose place. The evil Mani-Mani statue, or as it's called in Japan, the Mani-Mani Devil. It's implied to be endued with some of Giygas' power, harboring a hypnotizing allure that causes those susceptible, such as Mr. Carpainter, to become malevolent and act out in strange ways, like establishing the Happy Happiest cult. This statue is passed along throughout the adventure, its strong influence guiding many of the situations Ness and company must resolve, one of which being the entrapment of Ness and Jeff in a seemingly alternate dimension, a warped reality known as Moonside. It's essentially a brain-melting, mirrored version of Fourside, forever in the veil of night, made up of these flashing neon colors. The music is dissonant and twisted. Its inhabitants speak in incoherent, disconcerting sentences. It's an unsettling place to escape from, which is only possible by destroying the source. When the devil statue is dispatched, it's revealed that Moonside was a hallucination, all of its events taking place in the storage room of Boris's bar, or Jackie's cafe. The Mani-Mani Devil isn't the only allusion to demons in this game, but I will be continuing the discussion in the next episode on dark aspects of EarthBound. We'll go over the many ways death and dying have been censored for the English release, along with a look at the more suggestive themes, all leading to the final confrontation with Giygas, which combines every dark element of the game. Thank you all for watching. I hope you look forward to the next one.